Welcome to Shape the Deal. My name is Eddie Benoit. I am your host for Season 2. This season, we'll talk about a very interesting topic, which is public-private partnerships, P3 structures.
Hi, Mayor Frank Scott Jr., Little Rock, Arkansas, immediate past president of the African American Mayors Association.
Welcome to Shape the Deal. We have an exciting episode today, but even more so, an exciting guest who's joining us from Little Rock, Arkansas. The mayor himself, Frank Scott, is right here in Atlanta in our studios, here to talk to us about public-private partnerships in his city. How you doing, Mayor?
Doing well.
Welcome to Atlanta.
Good to see you.
Good. I appreciate you coming down here and having a little conversation with me and letting people know a little bit about what's happening in your hometown, Little Rock, Arkansas. How you feeling today?
I mean, anytime I get to be in the chance of the presence of the Godfather of real estate, it's a big day. I want to take this time to just share my appreciation to you because you've always been involved and engaged with black mayors across the United States. You've always been a listening ear, always giving advice and counsel on how we kind of power economic development and public-private partnerships together. And one of those individuals that's always present, and present in the good times and the bad times. And so I just want to share my appreciation to you and all that you've done, not only for myself, but also for other mayors across the country.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And, this is an opportunity, for me, you guys are not only, mayors and leaders in your communities, but even outside your community, especially you being the past president of AMA, the African American Mayors Council, and you recently, turned over the baton to Stephen Reed out of Montgomery, Alabama. So, I mean, it says a lot about yourself as far as how your peers, have received you and followed your leadership, and the fact that you're also uplifting, the next, mayor here, which is Stephen Reed. So, it's hard to be in your seat. I appreciate the work that mayors have to do, throughout the cities that they actually, pretty much, they govern. And it's easy to talk about the things that don't go well, but they don't understand the challenges that you have to overcome, and that, in order to grow and make change in their cities. At the end of the day, you can't do it by yourself, okay? No one person, regardless of how much enthusiasm and passion and love they have for their city, can do it by themselves. You need to galvanize everybody who is capable, interested, willing, qualified, eligible, to work with the city in order to accomplish, any growth goals that you have as it relates to economic development, as it relates to, just dealing with the affordable housing crisis in your cities. It relates to, bridging the wealth gap in your cities, the concentration of poverty in a lot of different areas that you have. I mean, it really takes, everybody to kind of coalesce in order for you to move your agenda. So I really appreciate you, joining us here, today in this conversation, Mayor. But a lot of people don't know much about the Frank Scott. You're a junior just like me. I'm a junior too. But, tell them a little bit about, your background.
Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here, to be the mayor of the city of Little Rock. I'm the first black elected mayor of the city, where we made history on December 4th, 2018. But a little bit about me: born, raised, still reside in Southwest Little Rock, which has meaning in the city of Little Rock. With that being said, I was one of those individuals that did not have college on my vision board growing up. First generation college graduate on both sides of my family, and college really changed my life. And but for my mother making me go to college, because that was not even an interest of mine, because that's not something that I actually saw when I was growing up, I wouldn't be here before you today. And so I went off to go to college at the University of Memphis. That really changed my world, changed my life, where I got involved into politics while in college, as well as understanding the means and the mode of business. That being stated, I graduated from college, came back to the city of Little Rock, my hometown, and then really got involved in the business sector, and then ultimately worked for a governor for 5 years. While working for that governor, Governor Mike Beebe, the last Democratic governor of the state of Arkansas, I learned a lot about public policy, learned a lot about business, and went to school at night to get my MBA, and then ultimately I wanted to get back into business. And what we were able to do, I was able to take an offer at First Security Bank where I learned banking. So I was a commercial lender for 7 years and also took care of different types of investment banking from a standpoint of municipal finance. And so learned a lot about how deals were made and done, and executed my own deals over those past 7 years. Then I was blessed again, Governor Beebe allowed me to come back and help him as a highway commissioner. Again, understanding that infrastructure is the foundation of economic development, and how roads and mobility and transportation really plays a role in economic development. That being stated, I was a young 34-year-old, really frustrated with the system, what was going on in our city as it relates to the political powers that be, and I was crazy enough to decide to run and try to upset that system. By the grace of God, we were able to get elected on December 4th, 2018. And here we are. We just recently were able to get reelected in 2022. And what we've been doing is focus on how we unite the city, how we grow it, and how we transform it. And over that period of time, we've already increased our jobs development through helping to create 11,000 new jobs over 5 years, which is a historic feat that we've been able to do that in our city. We were able to bring back our local school board which was under state control. It's now a locally elected school board, and because of our efforts, we were able to do that and create a community schools model that's now being upheld across the entire state of Arkansas. With that, we continue to focus not only on economic development and education, but what we're doing to understand that you have to have a balance of public safety and public safety reform. And we've been able to do that and lead that way, not only in our city, but across the state in the South. And so we're excited about the things that we were able to get done, and also understanding that environmental policies are really key to our generation. And recently we just announced that we're going to help focus on our 2030 plan to get the city operations to 100% renewable and clean energy by 2030. And so recently we have struck a deal with a solar company with solar array systems to get us to close to 70% with the flip of a switch and some construction. So a lot's going on. I know we want to talk about real estate, and
but no, all of that is critical to real estate. So a developer like myself, that's music to my ears because of all of the stuff that you're putting in place, which is part of infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
Okay, logistics, in order for things to be, pretty much ready for us to tap into, as opposed to us coming with very forward-thinking ideas and concepts for development, and to find out that we're dealing with a municipality that is kind of in the dark ages. And so that alone just really underscores the type of person you are, the type of leader, type of mayor you are, especially with your background. Most people don't understand, why you're qualified to do what you're doing, and why you understand the issues, and why you focus so hard on certain issues, because of the fact that you understand the sensitivities behind them. So when you talk about public-private partnerships, what additional tools are you guys using at the city, Little Rock, in order to help stimulate more development, not only from just local developers within Little Rock or the state of Arizona, but also outside of Arizona, for them to understand this is what Mayor Scott is doing here in Little Rock. This is why they're open for business. This is why you should come, because it's a different day. What do you guys do?
Well, with Little Rock, Arkansas being one of 50 unique cities in the U.S., being a capital city, a lot comes from that. We are the largest city in a small state. I would love to share with people that Little Rock, Arkansas is a microcosm of the U.S. because we're both rural and urban at the same time, and really have the same realities as, while we're a mid-sized city, we have the same reality as many large-sized cities because we're in a small state. And so we're able to really plug and play on how we utilize public-private partnerships and overall development. With that being stated, one of the things that we really have learned throughout that process is understanding your team. I have a phenomenal team that really helps us push out a lot of policies, but not only policies and platitudes, but how do we create proactive action. And so what we've been able to do from a housing standpoint is that we knew in the wake of our administration sharing that we were going to be unapologetic on how intentional we're going to be for our targeted community development areas, particularly areas south of 630, east of I-30, That may not mean much to you, but across America, have always been historically red line areas in our respective cities. And so those two interstates are red line areas in our city. And what we said was that areas that have been historically forgotten and underserved and unserved, we were going to be paid attention to in our administration. So we've been able to do that. One of the things that we did in August of 2020 was stated that if you're going to develop east of I-30, south of 630, which are our target community development areas, that we're going to make certain that we waive all of your building permit fees, waive all of your water connection fees and sewer connection fees, to take that burden and that cost. And depending on how big the deal is, that becomes a really big number.
It's real. It's a real number. I'll tell you right now. You take that out from the pro forma, it creates a lot of breathing room as far as just the return, on the investment from a developer standpoint.
And from that intentional policy, we were able to look at that data. So from 2020 to 2021, when we waived those fees, what we saw was 56 to 57% of all new business development, whether it be residential construction or commercial construction, new businesses, happened south of 630, east of I-30. And so what it shows is that if you are very honed into the development of a particular area, you understand that many times there needs to be some type of an incentive, some type of a waiver, that you can get developers like yourself to pay attention to other areas, that you can find the gold in that mine. And so we are very grateful from that opportunity. Secondly, what we've been able to do is really leverage our federal Housing Urban Development Dollars, HUD. There are very programs, the alphabet soup, so I'm going to spit out some acronyms.
Right.
We'll find them and Google them later. But home and NSP funds, what we've been able to do is chart out a 100 home initiative where the city of Little Rock identifies vacant property. We purchase that property, lay the infrastructure, and then we have our own individual first-time home buyer assistance programs where we're working with local developers, contractors, and banks. And so essentially, a resident is able to get a home with instant equity because they didn't have to pay for that infrastructure and down payment assistance. And so we've been able to do that now over the course of a year and a half, 154 times. And so we're really excited about it. But it's sporadic, and I think being a developer is, particularly from the HUD standpoint, everyone wants to focus on single-family homes, which we should, and so ours has been sporadic around those target community development areas. But what we want to do going forward is focus on a development, an actual programmatic,
yeah.
concentrated development, so we can really focus on what we call permanent supportive housing.
Great. I mean, you're hitting the racial disparity, topic right on the head. I mean, this is a conversation that's everywhere, throughout the United States, whether you're urban, suburban, rural, city. It's a huge issue, and especially with your targeted areas as it relates to affordable, low-income housing, workforce housing, because you need housing for the workforce, too, and also just dealing with the wealth, gap. Okay, and as far as wealth equity amongst those who are disenfranchised, primarily a lot of African Americans, especially in Little Rock, and so being able to get your first home or be a first-time home buyer and getting that kind of assistance, not only the down payment assistance, but also with the foundational costs and land, that is a huge boost.
And one of the things that we're working on is because we spend so much time on these 154 homes. Second phase is a concentrated development, but while we're doing that, we're happy and excited that Little Rock was one of 5 cities to receive a City Start grant from Bloomberg and Greenwood Initiative. And so, because it's focused on financial literacy. And so while we're closing racial wealth gaps by ensuring that we have more individuals that are black and brown that have access to home ownership, but just because you have access to home ownership, you got to be aligned to keep your home. And the only way to be aligned to keep your home is understand financial literacy. And so we're going to be working on different ways on how we connect the dots for those homeowners, those new homeowners, to ensure that they keep their home, maintain their home, grow that equity, and do it all over again. I mean, but also show it, train up a child as they should go. So we want to make certain that all of the youth are involved in this process too, so they can see home ownership from a very young age. So when they become adults, they're able to move forward.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that is what I share just within our organization is that some people need to be ready to be a homeowner. Not everybody's ready to be a homeowner, and it's okay to be an apartment dweller. When you look in major cities, not everybody owns a home because they're just not ready, depending on where they are in life. And so that's also equally important as far as those who are qualified and eligible to be homeowners, that you can actually train them on the financial literacy, but also how to maintain, operate, just their personal budgets, and also maintain the home itself. So they are able to preserve the equity when it's time to become a move-up buyer. So that's really great to hear. Now, as you address this racial disparity issues in Little Rock, Arkansas, and you're redeveloping a lot of these areas that had higher concentration of just poverty, low income, how have you dealt with gentrification with these new developments as far as the fear, the threat, or misunderstanding of gentrification?
Well, I think first and foremost, to fight off the thought and the mystery of gentrification is to understand that you have to be engaged with the community. You have to really walk alongside residents, whether it be existing residents in a particular area or even the new residents that are coming to a particular area, to help them understand the fabric of the community, the history of the community, and to ensure that that's not lost. And so one of the things that we've focused on is ensuring that the developers in our city do that. We've seen one great example is a developer in the city of Little Rock, in the area south of 630, east of I-30, as I shared earlier, has really brought this new development. But also, he's also been able to bring back the barbershop, the beauty salon, the restaurant, all within less than a mile radius of each other, to really build back community. But also to understand that, hey, the individuals that were here, that are currently here, didn't have that experience. And how do we bring everyone together to coexist in that experience, but also benefit from the same experience? And so it takes a lot of engagement, it takes a lot of understanding, but also it has to take developers like yourself to understand that you may not know it all. You know how to strike the deal, but you need to understand how to create the will within the community to support your deal, to ensure that nothing negative happens with that. And so what we've seen is great success there. But then secondly, at the end of the day, we have to make certain that our residents are increasing their per capita income. So that's the reason why I focus so much on the economy in our city, because while it's growing, we have to make certain that black and brown individuals are participating in that progress that we're seeing holistically. Because as you know, many times the unemployment rate may be sub twos, but when you go to the black community, it's in the high tens. And the reason why it's in the high tens is because of a lack of job growth rate and also workforce development and training. But going back to developers like yourself, you're focused a lot on workforce housing, because how do you get ready for a home, but how do you have a home connected to the housing, and even the transit portion of that. And that's why we're seeing now, even here in Atlanta, we're working on in Little Rock with our transit system, with transit-oriented development. And so we got to have that multitude of mobility as well as the housing space in our city.
Well, everything you said about what a developer needs to do as it relates to the community engagement, galvanizing the community, you pretty much gave my job description. Here it is a task, but it is very necessary. At the end of the day, I always say, and other developers too, real estate is local. So it doesn't matter where we're developing throughout the Southeast or in the Midwest. When you go into that community, you have to really dive into the local fabric of that community, understand it, and for them to know that you're here to stay, as opposed to just, hey, I'm just going to build this development and I'm going to sell it and I'm gone. And that's a difference maker when you're dealing with these types of public-private partnerships, that you're there for long term, you're committed, not only within the four walls of your development, but also outside. How you change, we talk about, our tagline is the Benoit Group as a company, changing the landscape. How do you change the landscape that you found when you first got there, and where everybody can benefit and live and thrive and celebrate what the end result is going to be? So this has been some great conversation, as it relates to, Little Rock and what you're doing. Again, I'm always admired what you're doing, Mayor Scott, but I want you to at least share with some of these other developers outside of Little Rock that don't know much about Little Rock or are misinformed about what's happening in Little Rock under Frank Scott's administration, second term.
Second term.
Okay, he's making things happen. All right. So, what message would you like to leave, for our listeners, our audience?
Well, one, Little Rock is open for business. We really want you to take a strong look at us. I want to personally invite you, host you to our city. We're a city of 210,000 and continuing to grow. Our overall MSA is about 1 million. We want you to know one of the key lines that we show is the 4 R's. River, railroad, and runway are all intersected within our downtown system, and that's a great way to how you develop. And so we want you to know again that we're open for business, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, man. Scott, thank you for joining us today on Shape the Deal. Another great episode. Hopefully you received a lot of great insight and information from our mayor, Scott, from Little Rock, Arkansas. They're open for development. So hopefully you can shape your next deal in Little Rock. Stay tuned for our next episode on Shape the Deal.